Hello, hello. Welcome to Texas History Distance Learning. I hope all of you are safe and healthy. And this is the first time, I think, with this class that I've been able to do a video lecture. It's not the first time I've done it for the 8th graders or anything like that, so this is a first for you guys. I hope everything works out well. I've already sent you an email detailing how I'm going to use RenWeb by posting assignments on that. I'm going to post this lecture onto YouTube later on, but then I'm also using Google Classroom. And it's on Google Classroom that I will post links, and I have already posted links for PowerPoint presentations of the slides that you can have up and print off if you need to. And I'm also going to add the link to the YouTube channel where you can find this video. And so I'm going to do a little Google Classroom tutorial in a little bit. But first, let's go ahead and start with our lesson. So we're going to pick up with chapter 18, which is entitled Conflict on the Frontier. And if you see me looking over here a ton, it's because I have my book right here, a very large book, don't have my podium, having to work from the office today. So let's go ahead and start with chapter 18, Conflict on the Frontier. And if you can go ahead and get out your books to page 452, that would be great. Okay, so page 452. And we'll start with Roman numeral 1, the search for peace and raids on the frontier. So we left off with Reconstruction. And the United States had just tried to build itself back up after the Civil War. And it wasn't until we were dusting ourselves off from Reconstruction that we were kind of able to focus on the western part of Texas. Now, during the Civil War, Native Americans were attacking unprotected settlements in West Texas, which this is no surprise. There were no soldiers out in West Texas because all of the able-bodied men who were able to fight were fighting in the East or in East Texas for the Confederacy. So there was no federal troops that were out guarding unprotected settlements in the West. And so Indians were taking advantage of this to attack those settlers. Many of the pioneers and settlers, as a response, moved back to East Texas in order to have safety, in order to live in large numbers. Now, after the war, after 1865, if you remember, Texas and the South as a whole, they were divided into 5 military districts. And the Union forces, after winning the Civil War, now occupied the South. And so they placed federal troops in the western portion of Texas to try to keep settlers safe. And they began building forts all along the western portion of Texas, but the Indians didn't stop. And the reason why they didn't stop is even though there were forts, these forts were too spread out. There was nothing that the federal troops, unless they were just on constant patrol, could stop and prevent these Indian attacks. One other way that these soldiers were kind of at a disadvantage out in the West is because there was a shortage of supplies. It took a long time for supplies to reach out west and to get into the western portion of Texas. But also, they knew little about frontier warfare. You have to understand, a lot of these troops, they had fought in the Civil War on battle lines. They knew where the enemy was located. They had intelligence that they were able to spy out and see where the enemy forces were located. But here, with the Indians used guerrilla warfare. They would attack at night whenever settlers and troops least expected it. They would set houses and barns on fire and then escape back into where their villages were located. And a lot of these Indians that were attacked, they were nomadic. They were constantly on the move. So it was very difficult to stop the Native Americans from attacking these settlements out in West Texas. And so the United States decided, instead of trying to take a forceful approach with the Indians, they decided to try to do it diplomatically, meaning having talks or peace talks with the Indians. And so in 1867, the U.S. government wanted to make a treaty with Native Americans, and they met in a place in Kansas called Medicine Lodge Creek. And it was at Medicine Lodge Creek where they created the Treaty of Medicine Lodge Creek. Now, the treaty had 2 provisions, and if you remember, provisions, they are parts of a treaty. things that make the treaty work. And so the first one was that the Native Americans would have to stop fighting and stop destroying settlements in West Texas. They would also have to allow the United States government to build railroads into West Texas, even if that means going onto their land. They had to give up their land claims on the plains of Texas and eventually move to reservations in Oklahoma. If you remember what reservations are, they're land that's specifically set aside for Native American groups. So the government would take these lands and they would say, this is your land that you can stay on. Now, the second part of that treaty is that the United States would have to give Native Americans land for the reservations. They would also have to give them supplies and then promise that settlers would not enter their reservations. So basically what they're telling the Indians here is, you need to just let us continue to build civilization throughout West Texas, and you need to give up your land and move on to these little pieces of land that we've given you. And then in return, we'll give you supplies, we'll give you land for the reservation, and our settlers will not enter into your reservation. That's your own area that you have all to yourself. But here's the thing. Not all Native American leaders signed the treaty. In fact, if you, I believe on page 458, you should be able to see primary sources there detailing different Indian chiefs and what they believed about these treaties. Should they accept the treaty or should they not? And it gives their reasons why they would or would not. So if you have time, on page 458 and 459, I would read those different points of views from those Native American chiefs. So let's look at the failed peace attempts. First, the President of the United States at the time was President Grant. That is the same Ulysses S. Grant that was the commander of Union forces in the Civil War. So government agents, one of the problems that prevented peace was that government agents that controlled the reservations were corrupt. And President Grant recognized this and said, we need to change this. We need to find out who's corrupt and we need to get them out of power. So he tried to remove these corrupt federal agents and he replaced them with missionaries and church groups. And there was one specific group that he liked to depend on, and that was the Quakers. The Quaker group were what we would call pacifists. And if you believe in pacifism or are a pacifist, you don't believe in fighting. And the Quakers were perhaps the most peaceful religious group of the time. And so, like I said, and what it says on the PowerPoint, many of these missionaries were Quakers who practiced pacifism. That's an important term. The belief that it is wrong to use violence to settle conflicts. Now, since all Native American leaders did not sign the treaty, it weakened its effectiveness. So not all the Native Americans were unified in this approach. So there were still some Native American groups that were opposing the construction of railroads and still attacking settlements. One of them was Quanah Parker. He was a Comanche chief who did not sign the treaty. In fact, Quanah Parker, while he was a Comanche, he was half Anglo-American, half Comanche. It was his mother who had been an American settler that was captured as a young woman and then ingratiated into the Comanche lifestyle, married into the tribe, and eventually gave birth to Quanah. So he was the son of a Comanche chief and Anglo-American woman. And like I said, his mother, Cynthia Parker, had been captured as a child. Now, Quanah led a group of Comanche fighters who resisted American settlement on the plains. And he's going to come up later. He's going to be a formidable force against United States Army forces. All right, so in the end, neither side kept their promise. Big shocker. Native Americans kept raiding Anglo-American settlements, while Congress did not deliver supplies on time, and Americans kept entering the reservations. So everything that they had tried to set in place with the Treaty of Medicine Lodge Creek, both sides ended up breaking their commitments. So what had once been peace now turned to conflict. And so we're going to pick up with West Texas wars tomorrow. So if I have time, which I believe I do, I'm going to exit out of here and I'm going to give you kind of a little tutorial with Google Classroom. So this is third period Texas history. you notice that I can make announcements here on the front page of Texas History, third period. And I give you this announcement, but I also uploaded the PowerPoint right here. So you can download this PowerPoint, print it off, or just have it downloaded onto your computer and bring it up whenever I'm going through my lecture. Classwork. So I sent out an email saying that I'm going to have one graded homework assignment, one graded quiz assignment. Now, I know that in the first 3 quarters, I did not grade homework, but that has changed. In times like this, you make necessary changes. So I've created a homework grade category, meaning that your quizzes won't be as such a high percentage on your overall average. You're going to have a homework grade category that's worth 10% of your grade. So if you go to classwork, this little tab up here, if you go to classwork, you'll notice that I have the chapter 18 topic, but I also have the video lecture and the reading assignment. What you're watching right now is video lecture 1. Okay, after you watch video lecture 1, you're going to go to your reading assignment, which is posted on RenWeb. So you're going to read pages 460 through 465. And then after you read that, there's going to be a reading assessment. Now, I'm going to click on this real quick. You're going to see that the reading assessment is a Google Forms. This is like your homework. It's just checking to see if you remember and understood what you've read. It is a homework grade. And you may use your book to find answers if you'd like. It's just as if I were having you work in your workbook to where you're reading and then answering, and you can use your book to answer the questions. That's the same here for the reading assessment. Now, whenever I post your quiz, you will not be able to have your book for your quiz. So, but for this reading assignment and the reading assessment that's attached to it, that is a homework grade right there. And that will be due at the very, very end of the day, 11:59 p.m. of March 17th. So I'm giving you the whole day tomorrow, March 18th is when it's due, and it says it right here. I just now noticed that. Due March 18th at 11:59 p.m. So you have all of March 18th to read and do this assignment, and also watch the lecture that I will post for tomorrow. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. You know my email, so just send me an email whenever you have any questions, and I would be happy to answer those for you. Now, quick poll, real quick. I want to start ending these and try to find something lighthearted, if I can, to talk about other than Texas history and what's going on in our global society today. So, quick poll. My wife and I have been really enjoying the Disney Plus features that are available, and we've been spending some time watching movies, and my daughter has fallen in love with Frozen 2 that they thankfully released early. So I want to know, what school appropriate movie are you most excited to watch while being out of school, or that you have watched already and will probably watch again? So you can actually, I believe, share something, okay, here on the class page. If you can't share anything on the class page, writing your answer, you can email it to me, and then I will let you know in the next lecture whose opinion is most popular. All right, I hope you all have a great rest of the day. I hope that we can really quickly get rolling with the new video lecture and the new distance learning format. Again, my goal is to not make life miserable for you. Okay, my goal, I understand that it's stressful. It's pretty stressful for me. I'm trying to get all this stuff together, and so I want to cause the least amount of stress as possible for you, and I hope we can get through with this smoothly. All right, praying for safety and health for you and your families. Have a great rest of the day.